All right, going to call to order the Board of Education Committee of the Whole. It's Monday, November 19th at 6 p.m. The board makes available at least one current copy of the Open Meetings Act, which normally is posted on the west wall of the meeting room.
It is.
That's west? Oh, okay, so it's over there on the west wall. Very good. First off, we're going to have approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the agenda as presented.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right. First up, we have the bus grant update. Mr. Alexander.
Just a brief timeline for everybody here. In December of 2018, you all know that you hired me. March of 2018, I made a request on behalf of Beatrice Public Schools to be part of the Nebraska Department of Education Volkswagen lawsuit, in which resulted in the Department of Education having some funds to put forward to grants for schools in the state of Nebraska. And we were added to that list of grant applicants. July of August, we worked with the NDE and Bluebird to get the application completed and submitted for consideration. Fast forwarding to the September, it was announced that we were recipients of a $42,000 grant to purchase a new bus with the guidelines specified within the grant, which I think we've sorted through that enough. September through November, we've been identifying specifications with the help of Terry and Bluebird and other bus operational system companies in the state. We've submitted requests for proposals and tried to sort out that information for board consideration. Basically tried to sort out all the minutia and put in front of you the most important details. There's a whole lot of other things that we could go into, but basically sort them down to the companies that submitted quotes, and then allow you the opportunity to discuss those. The board decision will have to be made in December to meet the grant specifications of having the request sent, approved, and in order to give manufacturers time to get the bus back in our hands to meet grant approval dates, all required in the grant. So basically, we're gonna have to make that decision in December. We've tried to take enough time to investigate, get quotes back from everybody, and provide you with some different options for an upgrade. Basically, if you look at the spreadsheet in front of you, we talked with these three companies that submitted proposals: Bluebird, Thomas International. We looked at capacities of 53 students, 71 to 72 student capacity, 42 capacity, and then 42 capacity with some different options, mainly the Friedman activity seats, and individual air conditioning vents, and then also tried to put together engine horsepower that it just depends on whether it's a front engine bus or a rear engine bus, sometimes with the horsepower could be. I'm no expert on this, I'm not gonna pretend to be, but then also, of course, the biggest factor would be the cost of what it's going to do, what it's going to take to replace what we would currently be eliminating from the fleet, the route fleet. So, with that, I would tell you that's kind of a brief outline. That information is in front of you. The only thing I would add to the top, right-hand corner under the price where Bluebird is, there's a quote on the 53. I don't think this got put in there. That was my fault. It was $87,299 on the 53 passenger bus. So, and that's just standard. That first set is just standard replacement with no air conditioning, 53 person capacity, and a 2020, which we tried to make all these the same date, so we were comparing as much apples to apples as you possibly could be, and looking at the cost.
What's the Bluebird engine at the top?
The 53 passenger
Yeah.
Bluebird engine would be, I have it right here, 6.7 liter, 240 horsepower Cummins,
And what was the price again, Jason?
87,299,
And the grant was 40,
42,000. We have, for purposes of discussion, I want you to know we are applying for another grant. We're finalizing that application hopefully tomorrow. We worked on it today. We'll hopefully be finalizing it tomorrow and submitting it. But for financial discussion, I don't want to include that because I don't know what that amount's going to be. It could be for full reimbursement. It could be for not full. So if we look at the quotes provided and talk about upgrading our activity bus, which I think it's been requested that we do that. I've had numerous coaches, students request that we do that. And we subtract out the 42,000 that we have for the grant, we're roughly looking at 115,000. We round up to 160,000. We're looking at, subtract out the 42, we're looking at roughly $115,000 to upgrade. Now, it could be less than that, depending upon the other grant, but my recommendation to you would be to sign a lease purchase on that amount when we know for sure, and hopefully we'll know at the December board meeting. Sign a lease purchase so you create an opportunity to maximize your cash flow, or you don't strap yourselves without cash flow. You just pay a biannual lease option agreement. That I'll have information for you at the December meeting in making that suggestion. But, and then we should have, hopefully we'll know that if we got the grant or not. I'm hoping it's that quick return. I'm told it is, but we'll see.
What's our present capacity on our present bus?
The one we'd be getting rid of.
54, it's 1998.
Is that the flat front?
No,
Okay. How many will that hold?
it's 54 capacity, the
That
one
big
that we're getting rid of.
No, but I mean the flat nose that they use for a lot of activities?
We have 3 of those.
I didn't even know that.
Yep.
Okay.
1 rear engine, 2 front engine, and they're 72 passenger.
Just so I know, Terry, is that, when you said it's the 98, is that the one that's listed as bus number 5 on this spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay. And another question maybe you can answer for me is, I thought we were on some kind of rotation or timeline to replace some other vehicles in the fleet, and I don't mean just buses. How many of these other vehicles are we gonna be looking at replacing in the next year or two?
Mr. Alexander and I, we were gonna and probably Mrs. Nelson there, Dr. Nelson, about looking at van replacement and stuff down the road.
Because, you know, when I look through the list, I mean, we've got a number of vehicles that are 10-plus years old. You know, over 100,000 miles, I would imagine that we'd be needing to look at replacing some of those vehicles as well.
Yes.
You're exactly right, and that is part of the discussion as we move forward, that we're going to have. And that's why we put that in front of you. I don't know what the rotation was. I just know in talking with Terry that you're exactly right, is that we have a number of other vehicles on the fleet that, because of the change in the law that happened several years back, when we had to go from 15 passenger to 12, 10, then down to 10 passenger vans, that impacted everyone's fleet, and the Atchison Public Schools is no different than anyone else. A lot of those vans were all bought at one time, so you could transport students from point A to point B and have what you needed to have. And so, you're exactly right, Lisa, we are in a position where at some point, we're going to have to start looking at replacing those vehicles as well. This opportunity just presented itself with the $42,000 grant that, you know, that's a chance for us to upgrade this.
I look at all of I mean, I see the guys, you know, tooling around town in the trucks, and I look at the pickups, and all of the pickups are over 10 years old. They're listed on here, I think, and they almost all have over 100,000 miles, you know. kind of want to know what we're in for as far as what we're going to be left on the bus. And then I would like us to have some kind of schedule, replacement schedule, knowing that, you know, if the funds are there, we're going to replace these vehicles these years and these vehicles the following year, so that we know the expenses that we're going to, I guess, be incurring.
I agree, and I think that that's something that we've talked about putting together over the next couple of months. And then, as we get closer to the end of the budget cycle in June and July, we'll be able to garner some quotes and put together some, we'll know where we're at in the budget as well, and we'll have a plan for replacement, so we can bring that to you.
And I'm assuming that you do have information on how much repairs are costing us also for each vehicle?
Yeah,
Maintenance
we keep
repairs.
a record of it down there. I don't have it all on a spreadsheet, but we do have records of all the repairs.
I mean, is it like when you buy a new vehicle, does it come with, you know, like a 5-year, 100,000-mile warranty? I mean, is there some warranty and,
Yeah, they do have warranty.
okay.
So as part of this, I guess what we'd aligned to have happen, and I'll introduce to you at this time, Mr. Tyler Cox, who is with Bluebird. He was very helpful in acquiring the grant, offered assistance once it was announced, and called up and said, hey, I'd be happy to help you with this. So he helped us apply for the grant, and also offered to bring up an activity bus, which we've kind of been talking about as a replacement, an example of that from Fall City Public.
Yes.
Right, and said, and brought up what they did as an example for us to take a look at. So I know also after State School Board Convention, some of you were able to look at buses there. It's hard to explain what the activity seats, Friedman activity seats look like. So when he offered, I said, well, let's do that, so we can just take a look at what kinds of things we're in for. So Tyler, we do have the bus out front. There's probably people driving by going, what in the world's going on there? But anything you'd add to this at this discussion?
Yeah, so Falls City Public Schools, they just bought this bus. They received it this summer, so it's a brand new bus pretty much. It's only got about 7,000 miles on it right now. So it'd look very similar to what if you guys ordered something similar to this. Now, theirs is yellow, pardon me, theirs is yellow, so it's sort of, down the road, they might intend to bring this in as a route bus and take it off the activity fleet. However, we've talked to Mr. Alexander and I about the difference between the white and the yellow. If you went with an all-white bus and, you know, put your decals and stuff like that on it, there's no cost difference. If you order it yellow, it'll be this price, and if you order it white, it'll be the exact same price. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that going in, that when you go outside, you will see a yellow bus, but you can imagine it white and still see the same dollar amount, so. And I do have quotes for that exact bus so that you can kind of see. I have one for each of you. And if, you know, you can look through that and come back and kind of cross things off that list or add things to that list, whatever you see. If you see something you like or you don't like, I kind of wanted you to see what that bus exactly costed, so.
And how many seats are in that bus?
This one's a 46 passenger, and it's got the, like Mr. Alexander was talking about, it's got the Friedman activity seats. And what these seats are is they're constructed of the same material as a regular school bus seat. So they meet all the safety standards like fire block and all those things that you have to have. But they're more of a bucket style, coach style seats. So they're kind of a hybrid between like what you would ride on a shuttle and a school bus. A little more comfortable for a longer ride, but they still meet the safety standards that are required by the Rule 92 Nebraska safety standards.
Just a question after you said something. When you said that they could possibly take it from the activity to a fleet bus,
Mhm.
so are you telling me a fleet bus has to be yellow?
No, so it depends. You can use a white bus on a route, but it can't control traffic because it no longer has a stop arm or a warning light, so it's highly discouraged,
All right,
basically.
that answers my questions.
If you didn't have those Friedman seats
Mhm.
and you switched it back to the others, does that double, well, almost double the,
Just about.
The capacity.
It would be at 78, however, that's at 3 to a seat. That's what you kind of have to keep in mind is when you're talking about school bus seats, the standard bench style seats, they're talking 3 to a seat, which is pretty compact if you, you know, unless it's entirely an elementary trip. So if you switch to the school bus seats in this bus, it would be considered a 78 passenger. However, that's at 3 to a seat. This one right now is a 46 passenger, and that's at 2 to a seat.
One reason our 78 passenger buses only have 72 also is we spread the seats out a little bit. We lose some seating, but we have more leg room. So that's why we have 78 passenger buses, but they're only 72.
I'm sure the football players appreciate that. Basketball players, I guess, too. Anybody else have any questions?
I think probably if we go, my suggestion would be let's go out and take a look at the bus, and then if we have questions, further questions for Tyler, we can come back in, but I told him I would try and make his trip as short as possible, and so if that's all right with everybody, we can just go out and take a look at it.
They won't bother me at all, but.
Getting closer?
Yeah, I have,
But yes, we will get.
Wednesday night. Trevor's all alone.
Thank you for this.
You're welcome. How old are your girls?
7 and 4.
And Danielle, yours are what, 6 and 3? Yeah.
Pretty close. About
Yeah.
like 6 months apart, I think, aren't they? Each
both
of
of
them?
them are. And you've got the little one, Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
One tomorrow.
One. Is she a year already?
Yep, tomorrow
Oh,
is
she's-
1 year.
That's
She'll have her
crazy.
5 months.
Fantastic.
She'll be 5
Yes.
months for 2 years for me.
Yeah. Well, she'll always be a baby.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't tell her that when she's 4 years old, because she'll probably argue with you. I'm not a baby
Yeah.
anymore.
Is she
My
blonde? How
4-year-old.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep, she got the blonde hair.
good.
Just not like that.
They must be conducting the meeting out in the cold, that's fine with me. Somebody who knows way more about buses than I do can make that decision. See if Steve gets back in here.
Interesting. That's nice. I'd still like seatbelts.
Steve, okay?
He says he is.
Ask him.
He had the ice on it down.
Yeah, yeah, on his back.
No, just now.
now.
Going out to see the bus.
Woo, red and pink. Good goodness. When I pulled in, I think there was is there just a vinyl logo on the back, or
Yeah.
because it said Fall City Tigers, I think, on the back end, didn't it?
Yes, so there's lots of options about that. As you can probably see, the black that just said Falls City on the side, that is included always, so no matter what, or you can choose to not have it on there. But no matter what, it would come with Beatrice Public Schools on the side if you chose that. And then I actually had some designs drawn up for Mr. Alexander for some wrapping. They were a little more involved than what the Falls City did, but I think I got him some pricing on some different options you could do. I've been selling a couple of these activity buses that people kind of decorate up. Hastings did one, Ogallala, Seward's looking at buying one, and lots of really cool options when it comes to decorating them up. So I don't know if you got the chance to see those, but I do have some proofs that they look pretty good for Beatrice.
Just as a general rule of thumb on a wrap, maybe like Hastings or somebody used, what does that cost just for the wrap part?
Hastings did a full wrap. I mean, it is covered, even the rivets, everything is covered. And that'll cost up to about $9,000. And then you can do smaller, less involved, like Ogallala did. They kind of just have Ogallala Indians down the side. It's a little bigger, it's probably about this high and goes almost the length of the bus. And theirs was roughly a little less than 3,000. So there's kind of a range there, kind of can shrink it down or blow it up as big as you want, but based on budget and things like that. I believe actually that my my top dollar big activity quote that I sent you, I believe it included the vinyl wrapping if I remember right, but
Yes,
it did.
Yeah.
Mhm. So it included the proofs that I sent Mr. Alexander for different options you could do.
Can you email those to us?
Yeah.
please?
All in, pass them around.
And it would be, the proofs I sent you are on a white bus, not a yellow bus, so.
But we could do a yellow bus?
Yes, you can do vinyl wraps on a yellow bus, you certainly can.
Can-
I
think-
guess
You what?
the only reason I asked that is, and this is just off the top of my head, I just think at some point in time, if, when you said like Fall City may move this
Mhm.
yellow bus to the fleet, I guess I would, just without much thinking about it, I would think too, maybe a yellow bus might be the right way to go, just in case we would ever want to, yeah, again, upgrade this bus, move it to a fleet, I don't know.
I would kind of agree because, you know, when you were talking about that it doesn't necessarily meet all the regulations, people are used to seeing a yellow bus, not a white bus,
Mhm.
and stopping for it. I guess I would look more at the yellow bus.
Yeah. So I guess that's why I was just curious if we, I mean, may not be maybe it's prettier with the white. Do you have any with the yellow? Do you have any of the wraps on a yellow?
I've never done it before.
Okay.
I could certainly have the
Well-
graphics guy draw you up a design if that helps.
If you would.
Yeah, you bet, I can
You know what,
certainly
you
do
could
that.
maybe go black with an orange rather than
Yeah, the
orange and
background,
yellow.
yeah, the background would be black on the yellow.
Mhm.
I can certainly have that drawn up.
Thank
That's
you.
no problem.
You would.
One thing, Fall City, when they say move it to their fleet, they mean move it to a route.
Right.
Yes, I'm sorry, I meant route.
We don't have,
Yeah.
our buses, we have actually activity buses only. Our buses don't ever do a route. So we would never take it out of an activity. It always would stay an activity bus. We have them set up to be route buses. They have the stop arms, the four-way flashers and everything. But we don't have to have that because they are strictly activity buses. Once in a while, we park out and have to pull out on the street and stop traffic. That'd be the only thing with this bus, you could never do that. You have to be along a curb or in a parking lot. So that's why we set our other buses up as
Yeah.
route buses, so
Makes sense.
just in case we would have to stop traffic, we have that capability.
Now, I had asked Tyler when we were out there about the seats, and even though they're set up for buckets, so we get two per, you can actually put three on across there. So we could get the full 84.
Yeah, if you got in a situation where you had to, you certainly could. Mhm. It's rated for an 84, the vehicle itself, so if you had a situation where you just needed to use it for something, you could.
And I sat in the middle, it's comfortable, you don't even hardly notice that little
Mhm.
ridge, so.
With the, one of the things we've been talking about, and I know this might be putting you on the spot, Terry, so I apologize, but we've talked a little bit about the, I can get you guys a picture of this too. If you, I mean, you're real welcome to take a look at it. The air conditioning on the top, first glance, think it would fit in storage? I know you're gonna measure it, but,
It looks like it would.
okay.
I would imagine that most shops don't have them big, taller than a 12-foot door.
Yeah.
And that's what we have, is a 12-foot door.
It is an option, you can move the condensers down beneath the skirt, if the height is a problem. However, I don't like to do that just because you can get road debris up in the air conditioning system, which can be costly. So but it is an option, if that's what you have to do.
And you lose storage under there if you.
You would lose partial storage, yeah. That one has the big pass-through compartments, and there's even room to add another compartment if you wanted. It wouldn't be pass-through. If you did go to a skirt-mounted air conditioning system, you could still have the big pass-through compartments, but you could no longer have that additional compartment.
Thank you for bringing it over.
You bet. If you don't have any other questions, I do have quotes for that exact bus, so I'll just leave that with Mr. Alexander. I have plenty of copies for you all if you want to take a look at that. Yeah, Mr. Alexander's got my information, so if any other questions, don't hesitate to get a hold of me, so.
Yeah, and basically, we have between now and, like I said, the December board meeting, where we can, if you have questions, you can email me, I can forward them on to Tyler.
Yep.
And
Are white and yellow our only options?
No?
So what color do you like?
I don't know, I think white's ugly.
You want orange?
What does it do to the cost?
It may add slightly to go to a colored, like, I don't know what color are you thinking, orange, is that your colors? Orange
Orange
red?
and then have black.
It's an option, or you could have it
Close to
painted
yellow.
black.
Black with
Well,
It was-
actually, I would probably lean toward black.
Yeah, you could have it painted black and then add your name to the side. That's an option. I don't know that cost off the top of my head, but I'll make sure that Mr. Alexander has that information as well.
I was just thinking orange is closer to yellow.
I would probably go with black. If I were going to change from white
To a
or
different
yellow
color.
to a different color, I would probably go with black.
Mhm.
Because it shows dirt and you get to wash it more.
All the time, Terry.
Terry's like, oh, yeah.
No, we don't want that.
Heard you had a couple minutes free and.
So, well, thank you very much for having me out. I appreciate getting to meet all of you, and look forward to working with you if you have any other questions. So I'll leave this here and let you guys get back to it.
All right, thank you
All right,
very much.
thank you very much.
We'll
See
send,
ya.
I'll send Tim a thank you and his Board of Education, so appreciate it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks for talking to you.
Hey, Jason, did you have anything else to add to that?
Not, I think that's it for now.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions or comments? We'll move on to the 2019-2020 calendar.
Basically, just as another quick bit of information for you to digest as we put this calendar in front of you, and I'll let Dr. Nielsen take over a little bit here in just a second. Our district admin team has met. We've been putting together the calendar and a couple of options for you, discussing, looking at the calendar for next year, and then also looking into the 2020, 2021 calendar to see how that all impacts. So we've discussed, we've planned next year's calendar, we've presented it to the administrative team and garnered their input, hearing their suggestions, then taking that and reshaping a little bit more, fine tuning it, presented it to the Beatrice Education Association for their input and suggestions, have garnered all that, and now we bring it to you to discuss your ideas or suggestions, take a look at it, and maximize the calendar in the best interest of all of our students. So, basically, at this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. Nielsen, what she's put together.
You have two calendars in front of you. You have the draft, one that has draft on it, that's our option A. And then you have the other one that says option B on it. So you will notice that they are pretty similar to this current school year's calendar. There are a few little minor adjustments. One of the things that we did do is we have our new staff coming back for 4 days, and that is what we've done this year. We did take away one of the professional developments at the beginning of the year with our all staff. So new staff would start on the 5th, all staff would start on the 9th, and they would have 3 professional development days, and then on the 14th would be a half day with work time in the afternoon, and the 15th would be the day where all kids start. September looks very similar to this current school year. October, we added a professional development day. One of the things we heard from principals and from school improvement teams was it would be nice if we had something first semester just to come back so we could look at our current goals and figure out where we are, where we need to continue to go before January hits. So that is one of the things that we looked at with the 21st. Then you get to November, you have Thanksgiving, and then you get to winter break in December.
Okay, I have a question.
Yep.
Thanksgiving is on the 28th, rather than the 21st.
That's correct.
You're right, I'll switch it.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep,
5 Thursdays this
Yeah.
yes, that's exactly, it did throw me off.
Mhm.
Yeah, and what's funny is you're the first one who's mentioned something. And there's been quite a few
Well,
eyes
it's because
that
I'm
have
so
looked at this.
confused that we were so
I know,
early this year.
Exactly. It was very early this year, yeah. So that would move that back then to the 28th, 29th. Perfect. That's easy to adjust. December and January is where both calendars, is where they differ a little bit. So on the draft calendar, you have, students would, their last day for first semester would be on the 20th. Staff would come back on the 2nd. They would have professional development day and students would come back on that Friday for 1 day, and then we'd have preschool starting on the 7th. On option B, we would have our 2-week break, like we currently do, or we currently do this year. And then staff would come back for professional development on the 6th, students would start on the 7th, and then preschool would start on the 9th.
Kind of the same thing, I guess, on option B, we're really not gonna have school on Memorial Day, are we? The
On
25th?
If we would need
Snow
to
day.
do makeup days, well, that would move to the 27th.
Okay.
So that's what that would do, is move to the 27th. That would be a snow day, yeah. But you would have it 3 days after, just if we had inclement weather or anything else that caused us to go past the time. Yes. Now, there are things that can be adjusted in in both calendars, because you see that even second semester, we do allow for, we have a couple days in March that we've taken off, and a couple days in April that we've taken off, or that we have off as well, so those can be adjusted and modified. It is nice to give students a little break, and teachers, just throughout the months, because sometimes if you don't take a break in March, going from February to April tends to be a little bit long, and tend to get a little bit restless at times too. So those are options, but couple of the biggest things that you will notice differences between the calendars would be your winter break. The day out of school would be a piece too, as to if we did have inclement weather, these calendars do not include 3 makeup days. So like our current calendar has the 3 makeup days, these do not. And so as we look at it, that's to be determined as to what we need to utilize and how we need to utilize it, depending upon.
Is there a reason why we went away from that model?
One of the things in meeting and talking with Mr. Alexander, we just thought that it is nice to tell students when the actual day school is out, because currently, we know that the end of school is, I think it's May 23rd, but it could be May 22nd, it could be May 21st, it could be May 20th. So to give parents kind of that precise date rather than, here it is, but we don't know yet. And so,
In the past, we had so many issues with, yes, and to me, it's almost easier to build them in and be done earlier, rather than tell people, oh, we've already made plans, and now we're having school. I personally would like us to stay with the built-in days, just my opinion. I caught a lot of flack over that year, that they all thought that they were gonna have to come back after that day was already penciled in as the last day of school.
I guess the other thing is, when I look at the option B, having students come back on Friday, on January 3rd, I think you're gonna have a lot of phone calls on that. I would
so on the draft one,
Yeah, I would probably go with option B,
Uh-huh.
simply, I think it's just gonna be easier for administration, actually.
I can't imagine people are wanna possibly go past Memorial Day
Yeah,
either.
yeah, I would agree with you on that.
but that could be something where we could adjust and take the 12th, put that back as a school day, and put the 9th as a school day too. So there are little things that we could do to bring that back up to having the 22nd.
Right.
I would much more be in favor of that.
I would be too.
You always have the option of adding building minutes into the school day too. If you
You have to, yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with you. I don't think anybody really wants to come back after Memorial Day unless you start that much later in your calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would look more at taking that, the 12th of March and the 9th of April out and being done a little bit earlier. But I wouldn't mess with January.
But I agree that people are not gonna like coming back for
1 day.
one day when they could have had, that additional time, vacation, family, whatever.
As we discussed this, one of the things we looked at was, to go ahead, talk to them about 2021, because
Absolutely.
that's why we kind of came up with a couple options.
Yes, because in 2021, what we noticed is that we will end up probably getting out Wednesday, because Christmas Day falls on a Friday. So you get out that Tuesday with Wednesday starting your break. And then we would come back on, I think it was the 4th, because your first then would fall on that Friday, Thursday or Friday, and then, 4th, yeah, it would fall on that Friday, so then you would come back on the 4th professional development. So you would end up with a week and a half, kind of a normal.
Right.
This has been, the 2 weeks is kind of where it's fallen, you can kind of get that piece, but we did have that same discussion about, will students show up on the 3rd? Will staff members be back? And, you know, that is a professional development day, so, you know, it's one of those required days on the calendar. So we want to make sure that they're all here too, so those are some discussions that we talked about as well.
Yeah, I know that the teachers really like having 2 weeks off, but you know, that, it's just been the last couple of years, the way the calendar has fallen, you know, you're not always gonna get what you want.
No, no, you are not.
So,
No, you're not. And it is a long time for students to be out of school too, so that's the other piece that you look at as well.
I just, like I said, I don't think that parents are gonna want students to have to come back that one day. And I'm not so sure that's gonna be a real productive day to have them, you know, trying to get them to focus for a day and then send them home for 2 more and start over, so.
Or it'd be 3, because that following Monday is a work day, professional day.
Yeah. So,
Okay, John?
I would favor leave as well with just a few tweaks. Like I said,
Absolutely.
I would like us to leave the built-in days at the end of the calendar. I think it takes, I mean, I would much rather have everybody say, hey, we're getting out earlier than what we anticipated, than have to say, guess what? Well, I know we told you that the 21st was the last day, but sorry.
Yeah, I'd rather see work, or go to school on March 12th and April 9th, and get off early.
Okay,
Yeah, and you would still have a day each, you know.
absolutely. Yes, you
You'd have a
would.
day in March.
You
and
still
you'd
would have a
2
little
days.
bit of a reprieve and then,
Right. so-
Yep.
So that's what I would do with March and April, to get rid of
and
those days.
I am
later.
assuming that Easter falls on the 12th of April
Yes.
that year.
yep.
So you'd still have Good Friday and the Monday
Monday,
after
right.
Easter.
That's,
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
So
Take a look.
I will work on those
especially if you're getting
adjustments.
2 weeks, 2
Uh-huh.
full weeks at Christmas.
Yeah.
You ever have that?
Yeah, there's,
Or days of Easter.
and there's various ways, I mean, when we start talking about it, it's interesting to gather everybody's input, because it depends on, you know, how everybody looks at it, that shapes their ideas. And so it's good to hear everybody's ideas, and I think we can take these two, formulate a draft, and another draft, and bring it to you in December.
And I think they'll be excited not to have to work on Thanksgiving.
I think so too,
Yeah, I
yes,
think so.
you know, that is
Huge
awesome,
plus.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And it's that way on both calendars.
I know, I just got the same on both and, yeah, oops, I'm a little off. Well,
That's okay.
Okay, perfect.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? All right, moving on to superintendent evaluation, Mr. Alexander.
Basically, just, as you know, we talked about, have been talking about the superintendent evaluation selection instrument, and everybody has agreed that we'll use the NASB evaluation, so you'll have documents in front of you. I just want you to know that I appreciate the discussion. Again, this is just the opportunity for us to communicate back and forth. You'll have that evaluation in front of you, and then I think, if I understand correctly, the way you've done it in the past, which is fine, is that goes to Mr. Zimmerman, and then you collect it, and then from that point in December, you talk about it at the December board meeting, and then he meets with me. Is that the way that I'm understanding correctly? I mean, I'm fine with that, but I just want to make sure that's the procedure that you're all in tune with, and we'll give it to you tonight, and then you can take it home and mull over it for a couple weeks, and,
I prefer to do it electronic,
okay?
and I'll just submit it to John.
Perfect,
Yeah, I get that from a few of them, so
all right.
do paper for those who want that. Computer for those who.
I do electronic.
And then we'll send you reminders in the next couple of weeks to please get that to John so he can tag it in
And
there.
access to put it all together, send it back, and,
And this year, you don't know our style of writing or how we will put something down, so you won't be able to say, she said that.
I won't. It'd be a surprise for all of us. So, but at least the process is in place. I appreciate your discussion and I look forward to the feedback. I think it's an opportunity for me to learn and grow and an opportunity for you to communicate with me about what you would like to see differently or what you like as is, so.
next up, board retreat.
Just quickly, I want you to know that I'm in discussion with a couple of different ideas. I think as we bring on new board members, we'll get that planned. And so we'll be throwing out some dates to you as to what will work in your calendars, as what will work in a couple of other ideas. And I'll bring more information to you in December and January about how that all comes together. But I do want you to know it's on the radar screen and I have a couple of different ideas for you, so.
Okay. Well, this is the proper time for public questions and comments on any topic. I see no one jumping up and down to come up and talk, so. At this time, I would take a motion to adjourn.
I move the Board of Education of District 15 adjourn.
In a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
You guys are gonna get in the other meeting just in time for birthday. Yippee! Nebraska's ahead.
Yeah,